feel it repeatedly over time. Is it beneficial to me and others, especially to others? Is it beneficial to others? Go to Yemen, go to Afghanistan, go to Iraq, and talk to the families who were killed in the Holocaust of the American lie and ask, was our invasion of your country beneficial for you? Nope. I think the need for profit and privilege and power should be examined in myself in this presidential run. Okay? No, the Buddha was saying, you got to stop that behavior, Mr. Biden, Mr. Klaus Schwab. No, it wasn't beneficial to kill in the name of a lie. That's what the Buddha was saying. Put the brakes on. Put yourself in the role of the harmed and take a high dose of reality along with psilocybin and ketamine and be around a group of radical women who will hold space for your catharsis and overcome and purge yourself from these fucking proclivities before there's no world to save. Until the Buddha concluded by saying, hey, and when you know it really rocks inside of you, that it brings beauty. What are the best kept secrets in the world? Beauty. If it brings beauty, if it brings peace, if it brings the radiance of inspired generosity, it brings party-like celebration, even among those whom you wouldn't even have at your party. You want to get up and do your ecstatic dance. You want to just drop the formality of your pretense. All those things that we should throw out, placebo around the world. There should be the biggest stock option in the world, MDMA, where the defenses of patriarchy are so radically relaxed that all of a sudden these evildoers in this Kalama Sutra go, wow, I cannot believe I'm crying in the release of this primordial attachment to denigration in the name of freedom. And we have to ask ourselves, are we living in compromise based upon our psychological, spiritual pursuits? And I find myself being here in the epicenter of transformational almost wisdom. You do what you need to do. But if you knew that you weren't alone in what you feel and see in yourself as not being that beneficial, you would stop what you're doing, save your money, and you would overcome any need to further deny the beauty of your own being and relax that, fast from those activities, and live. And you will find, and I'm finding in my life, people have basically abandoned me. They weren't friends. They weren't friends. I've got a lot of really cool friends, radical cool friends. But now my friend is me, and I can't do it alone. But I refuse to not befriend my integrity, my radical critical thinking, my deep discernment, my mindful intelligence. Yes, flawed, to state the obvious. But I know that I'm on the right side of history. I've seen the evils of totalitarianism and dictatorship in Burma, and I see it now around the world. And it's time to stand up inside of one's own conscience and say, you know, I'm going to do a thorough house cleaning this week. I'm going to look at every little place that I involve myself with people. I'm going to map that. I'm going to look at all the things that I do with my clients, with my gurus, with my practices, with my yoga. What am I doing here? And what is my most revolutionary voice? Can I find a greater way into freedom than the ways in which I'm doing it? To bring in some doubt, bring in some critical thinking. Okay, and I'll stop here. Aung San Suu Kyi, my friend who's imprisoned for life in a prison cell without fucking windows in Burma while the world allows and supports a modern day witch burning. I asked her once, how do you know when someone says, I want to join the revolution? How do you know if you hold arms and hands together or you give them the opportunity to test the waters of their freedom and their fear, that ratio, and give them a behind the front edge role, providing food for families of political prisoners who've lost income? She said, Alan, that's a very interesting question that we've looked at very carefully. My experience has been those who bravely state that we want to rise up and take a front row seat in confronting nonviolently the evildoers, generally speaking, those with the strongest sense of intensity, speaking right to me, are the ones who have to be a little bit cautious with. And it's those ones who quiver in their vulnerability, who aren't quite certain, generally women. I've found they're the ones who rise under pressure. There's something so beautiful about giving yourself that gift, which I'm giving myself more and more, the gift of rising up in the radiance of my denied purity, my passions, my voice, and going like, you know something? I'm one of those who quiver. I'm a little bit uncertain, fearful of not belonging, alone, deny my loneliness, a little bit of vulnerability. You are the revolutionaries. If you are hearing this and you feel that, be so proud that history has shown, at least in my country of Burma, you are the courageous. And to step out slowly and methodically and go, you know, I don't think I need it. I don't need to be duped by someone who gave me a TED talk that was filled with romantic, poetic, evangelic lies. I don't need to be a thought experiment on exposing my own duplicity. I got it. I'm going to rise up in revolutionary courage and use critical analysis and deep discernment, ethical discernment, and stand naked in solidarity with a whole new dimension of co-arts and community rising up around the globe. I have them here in Ubud and around the world. We're rising up to keep alive the preciousness of freedom. Just think about the unborn, the children, and the future of life, the animals, the coexistence of deities and devas right now. They're all rooting us on. Go for the revolution of the spirit. Take freedom higher. Even though it may not be successful, think about the unborn. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. And just had to get this off my chest today. If there are people who have questions, comments, I wish I could tune in. I want to have an interactive Zoom thing coming up in the future. But thank you for tuning in. We'll be here again from next Sunday at 11 a.m. from Bali. And if you have questions, for those of you who are here, nice to see you. Thank you for coming, all of you. Take your time, don't have to be sensible. But anything at all that might be important, I'm all in with carrying on this dialogue while we still have Wi-Fi. So take a moment, if you have anything at all that might be important for me to talk about or you to ask, feel very free, virginal space. Doesn't have to make sense and it doesn't have to be transformational. It can just be honest. You know, while people are thinking, if there are things, I often don't share my personal life with anyone. There are those who sometimes I'm very personal with, but I very rarely ever share my personal life. And I'm not kind of threatening to do that right now, but I might disclose a little bit, is left to my own devices, I have this deep, deep, abiding occupation, if you will, for studying, on my terms, the artistry of interiority. I like context, especially if they're aesthetic, peaceful, somewhat secure, and simple, with a lot of birds and nature around. Like, that's why I like Ubud right now, is that it's got those elements. But left to my own devices, left to my own sense of play and the privilege of my life circumstance at the moment, and how I would empower, I would call it cognitive partying, is to enhance interiority through all the ways that you've heard me speak in the past, through diet, through the abstinence of most people, not that there aren't beautiful people, but it's, as an artist, it's very hard to feel and hear yourself in the terms of creative edge when you're, I would call it, too much in company with others. It's too beautiful. So you got to really force that edge in yourself. And so examining and heightening consciousness, and that's something I'm going to be leading a 3-Sunday upcoming global Zoom trans seminar called Mindful Intelligence, Meditation. It's a new term for me, microdosing. I'm really into the less frequent and the less you do, the more it enhances for me the purpose of doing that in the first place, to reveal and make more manifest the intrinsic plasticity, the neuroplasticity, the existential plasticity, the creative plasticity, a fascinating word that I'm learning more and more of, both scientifically and intellectually, but also on a felt interior level, which brings to the last category, which is something I've been involved in for a long time, but especially the last 3 years, and even more so here in Ubud for 4 months, is I would call it self-therapy, in which I'm going to explain more of that process. It's very personal to me. I think I've revealed it to many people, how to utilize shared space with yourself and the assistance of creative technology to intimately reveal and expand interiority and be your own savant, your own shaman, your own teacher, your own guru, your own Buddha, your own deva, your own deity, whatever the formation that is that you empower as mentor, guide, teacher, someone who reflects back to you interesting, expanded truths on your own present, a psychotherapist, a psychonaut-oriented, trans-existential, anarchistic therapist, whatever language you want to use, a lover, a savant. That premium in shared space is so hard to find. Someone who is so advanced as you. We often have to unknowingly adjust to find teachers and psychotherapists and shamans and environments where you're met. And I think that's one of the best kept secrets that I have found, is how unmet you are by the systems that exist in mainstream or even elite Western circles. For example, I very rarely find people who use the psychedelic without calling it medicine. Medicine sucks unless you've got cholera, dengue fever, typhoid, dysentery. Fuck medicine, man. To me, it's radical existential enhancement. I'm good on my own, but I'm really sometimes better on a micro enhancement, but I'm not doing it as medicine. It's just relanguaging, and you go, wow, that's cool. And so self-therapy is not buying into any system. And so you record yourself. I'm going to get into this, and you reflect back when you see it, you take notes, and you go, wow, I didn't know that when I was talking that way about an intimate edge of my own life. And you all of a sudden decouple from a lot of the ways in which you call yourself broke by spending so much money to travel to teacher trainings and psychoanalysis and teacher trainings and looking for how to become a psychotherapeutic, psychedelicized, brown shirt for the running dogs of corporate-induced, Pfizer-owned ketamine. No offense to those who do it wisely, but at the same time, the corporatization, the capitalization of the experts on knowing exactly why you can't function well in an insane society is because you deny your parental trauma. Well, if you do self-therapy with a few little prompts on AI called you go, fuck, man, that's not trauma. That's like, Jesus, I had the good sense to reject mom and dad and jump out my fucking window of conformity and basically say, guess what? No, thank you very much. I know you had very abusive parents too, and you had abusive parents. You had a very abusive upbringing called colonialism, and you had a very, very abusive upbringing called witch burning. And guess what? I can't join the club of overcoming anything to do with infinite historical trauma. It doesn't make any logical sense to me. Guess what? I had the good sense to jump out of a window of my own conformity. And thank you. That scar is a virtue, fucker. You just said that into the screen of your own therapy. You just saved yourself $20,000 and a certificate you don't need. Just had to get that off my chest. Someone's got to do the dirty work. You can give me some of the money that you still make, Mr. Experts. I take Bitcoin, I take Ethereum, I don't want Solana. Okay? So, am I really being honest? And when I look sometimes at the bullshit that I record of myself, I go, Alan, you can do better than that. And I wouldn't be telling a therapist that I'm paying $250 an hour when they're going, God, that's really incredibly interesting, Alan. I'll see you next Wednesday at 2 p.m. and maybe we can microdose some ketamine together. Wow, that's really rad. And really it's taking place there is the need for intimacy. And that's one of the greatest hungers of the human soul, is really radicalized, non-collusive lover sangha. I'm not saying sexual sangha. Pre, post, during, sapio-eroticized, ubuntufied, trans, anarchistic, way beyond poly, any kind of amory, meta-filled radical communion. And that's a whole other topic that I never really talk about is communication. And I think next Sunday I'm going to really go down into a personal level of revealing how I talk to myself and how I talk to the few people near to me when I'm really real. And that's a revelation that's not easy to capture either spontaneously or on theater stages or on camera, but wow. And I'll stop here and open it up to questions if you have them again, is when you look at the Buddha's teachings captured in these 11,000 pages of Buddhist texts, they're all written word, but they're all written word, so to speak, handed down by auditory vibration. And so when you study auditory vibration, like the musicality of meaning beyond semantics and etymology and all the various ways that we study language, and how to decode auditory vibration, the physics, you know, the equations of meaning. Like if I knew the equation of the word freedom, freedom, and that could be decoded, AI could probably do it. But really what I was thinking when I was saying freedom is being misused purposely or unknowingly as conformity, on the denial of my own inner template of conformity to a habit of misusing the word freedom to be misused for my denial of conformity. If we understood the physics, the musicality, or the mathematics, or the equation of that very simple psychology called self-deception in language, then the emotionality of that denial, then we've got the meditative wisdom, the mindful intelligence of decoding lie. Wow. Here, Mr. Biden, Mr. Klaus Schwab, put this in your mouth. I just decoded self-deception. Now guess what? We're coming to the World Economic Forum. We're going to talk about generosity, of how the corporate elites of the world can give trillions of dollars back. Mr. Gates, Mr. Bezos, to have a world that thrives on the sacred, on generosity, on the feminine. Just like that. By decoding self-deception. You can be sure that as much toxic, neurological, induced, sick, satanic joy that Gates gets out of committing a sick human behavior in the name of the advancement of planetary thriving that's a denial of his fetish to cull the world of people that don't agree with his sickness, and simply could take a vaccine to prevent any further metastasizing, I'm sorry to use the word, of self-deception, and taking it out on the world by killing them in the name of profit and calling it mental, physical, biological, medical health. How crazy and whiz would it be to have an invention where those sick men could just ingest that serum and go, fucking rad, man. I am now Gandhian in my Vandana Shiva-like care for the planet. And we reverse, what's the opposite of a tsunami? A wave of the divine feminine that washes away the sins of transgression, called forgiveness, right? Women know that, men know that, wise savants know that, washes away the sins of transgression. Just like that, a moment of global reconciliation. Why is that so hard to imagine being created through the conscious use of self-therapy? And so I think people are much more willing to tell the truth on a camera when no one's listening than to a psychiatrist, a therapist, or a teleprompted speech called the State of the Union lie. So I advocate self-therapy with moderate doses of psychedelics. And we've got now a record of how you talk to yourself. Imagine if that got revealed, then we'd really know how the state secrets were being lied about. Imagine if that went viral, someone got a hold of your hard drive from hell, Mr. Biden's son, Mr. Hunter, and we go, oh my God, look at how Biden talks in the mirror. And he drools, no offense, everyone can get dementia. And you go, hey, Gio, how can I stop lying to the world and the need to overcompensate for my penis that I want to have cut off? I don't know where this kind of self-hatred of my own human sexuality came from. I need to stop, Jill, playing this out on the world stage of evil. Imagine if we saw that fucking 2 minutes of disclosure from the White House. That would be banned even from Twitter, right, Mr. Musk? Anyway, enough of me. So just practicing for the next show at Yoga Barns. So have I obliterated everyone's attention enough not to ask any questions, or we can stop now? Anything that might be important to you, that might you want to say or share, I'm all in. Take your time. Do you have a question or a comment? You're in good company. Where have I seen you before?
At your talk on Wednesday.
Oh, you were there at the...
Yeah, my name is Melanie. I'm 2 months older than Joe Biden, your friend.
2 months older. 2 months older than Joe Biden.
Older. Yeah, I'm 8. And I don't know if I understood right, but to make this a better world,
To make it a better world?
it needs the feminine, the women.
Needs the feminine, the woman.
Now my question is,
The question?
do you have any in mind? Do you see any taking over? Do you see any great women
Taking over.
taking over? And I was thinking also of your country. I mean, Canada.
Right.
You don't hear about her anymore.
Right.
Vice president.
What
and
a
so forth.
gifted question to be asked by a woman.
Because I totally agree with your picture of the world and this and all this. And I have this, what we say in German, Weltschmerz. It's a world pain.
Oh.
So, yeah. Yeah, no, it's just,
I-
it's just when I think of it. But yeah.
So let me, if I can paraphrase what I'm hearing
Yeah.
and help me refine it if it's not what you meant. I'm so in, Alan, the way that I'm hearing you speak about the power of the woman and the need for that to help restore sanity, save the world. Do you see any women?
Yeah,
in the world that you may be inspired by, and you brought up my friend Aung San Suu Kyi, who's in solitary confinement. And you, as a citizen of Germany and Canada, you personally feel a deep pain inside of yourself. That's a very deep recognition of your conscience.
But I don't want to talk about me.
Okay, that's all I'm hearing, just to frame it for people who are listening. Okay, and so this is, I don't mean to be glib about this, and this is because I'm so virginal in this area. I'm very good at trouncing, decapitating, denigrating, vilifying the masculine, the patriarchy, the so-called man, and the evil masculine in women that they've inherited, or I don't know how far back it goes. So I want to respond by saying probably every woman that I meet is that woman. I think I am so into the discovery of what that looks like in the world. By the quicker that the man can speak about stepping off the platform of privilege and power in presidential roles and running for politics, the quicker we'll see an answer to your question. That's one response. I had a lot of hope. May I ask your name? I had a lot of hope and deep resonance, and still do, in my friend Aung San Suu Kyi, because it's not about idealizing a woman. I happen to have spent a lot of time with her among outsiders, and she is terribly, profoundly skilled at being simply a woman, a person, in a culture of radical women and men. And they call her in her country Ma Su, which is honorific for being the mother of the feminine. And people don't understand these things, that she stood for not just nonviolence, but the power of skillful communication. And to me, these are the attributes of the feminine, the divine feminine: skillful, compassion-oriented, unifying, non-demonization, non-vilification. I'm crass, I'm arrogant, I'm insecure. She's not. And she uses the measured skill set of being with someone who's vilified, tortured, imprisoned, killed, and she will not do what I do. She'll break bread. She'll drink tea. She'll say, let's work this out together. And that is so amazing, to show that there are those women, and I know a lot of women in Burma, who lead by example like this. And I'm sure they're all over the world. She has 2 children, yes. And what I would go on further to say, my colleague and I, Fergus Harlow, did 4 books of conversations on political prisoners who've been released. And many of those interviews that I did myself are of women. And you can read those books online, called Burma's Voices of Freedom, and you can get all kinds of examples of what women under incredible pressure do and think and feel, who have been raped or incarcerated, tortured, lost family, villages, jobs, incomes, and how they've managed to keep alive radical, revolutionary, divine feminine energy and not capitulate to anger, aggression, armed violence, and war. Although I don't take that down at all. There comes a time when enough is enough. There's enough is enough, dude. And so that's a second level of answer. And in reverse again for men in my life, and I've been going on about this, is I think until it catches more fire, that enough of us men talk more and more about the necessity, the urgency of stepping away from roles of so-called cultural, spiritual, psychological, meditative power, the better it is. And just all male meditation teachers should just cease. All male psychotherapists just cease and just do all you can to open up Patreon accounts, inspire generosity, and write books and do films and podcasts, and do everything you can to help support prime ministers, the resurrection of the female goddess priest, the nun, the prime minister, not to the point where you need licenses to run for government anymore. We need licenses to get a driver's license. You don't need a license to be a prime minister or a murderer as a president. It's satanic. And so what I'm saying is not, it sounds radical and kind of crazy, but it's not any different than saying in black, white apartheid South Africa that it's wrong to kill and rape black people because of the color of their skin. Right now, the issue is in. There's no future with men in roles of power.
It doesn't change in South Africa.
It's got to change tonight. And so another answer to your question for me is, may men catch on with this and decouple their existence of profiteering and making money, no matter how legitimate you call your expertship and your teachership and your trainingship. Just get over it, man. Get over your little need for your 1 or 2 or 3 years in Asia as a monk. Get over your little teacher training, having studied a little bit of contemporary psychotherapy. Get over your need to be a psychoanalyst. Get over it. Get a day job, you know? And I'm walking my talk in that area. And I want to live by example, but it's not done for that reason, but it's done for that reason as well. And so that's a little bit of my moderate rant on it. I mean, right now, for example, I love Bobby Kennedy Jr., I love DeSantis, and I'm, quite frankly, I've studied, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is fucking over the top rat for me. Gives me a lot of hope. So in the short term, it's like, may he choose Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii as the vice president. She's rad. She's superstar. Tulsi Gabbard. She's a rock star for me. Love her. And she's a truth teller. She's a former served in the military in Iraq. She stands up with elegant, divine, feminine, cognitively awake, morally sensitive, restorative justice, wisdom woman, truth teller. And, you know, I'm sure if I wasn't so isolated, I'm sure there are a lot of women. I have a lot of women friends that I would love to see get into high voice octave. My friend Catherine Ingram is a superstar. My friend Ora Nadrich is a superstar. My friend Leslie Kane, who just revealed as one of the world's leading investigative journalists, the whole UFO story for the New York Times. We started the Burma Project together. She's a radical savant of truth and integrity and discernment. And I have a number of other women friends who are, yeah, Jasmine here is a truth sayer. Martina, this woman I just met who came to my talk, you know, and I know a lot of women in Ubud. And rise up, overcome the shackles of belonging, and what is my real political bent? What is my revolutionary truth-telling bent? And learn the Bible of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights over Buddhism, over Catholicism, over psychology, over psychedelicism. That 3-page doctrine is the best kept secret on the planet. What are the constituents of free speech, free expression, freedom of conscience? I went on about this the other day, and I brought up the distinction between conscience, you would know this, conscience and consciousness. That mechanism in consciousness called the pre-DNA, the intelligence of right and wrong in a universe. And I do believe that the universe has lawful principles. unfortunately, it coexists with states of consciousness that, when blindly fused with, leads to incredible denigration on itself and other. That's the madness of samsara, is that it's a convulsive, delusional paradigm of holographic horror and luminosity. But I don't think you could become one with intrinsic conditions that are intrinsically evil and think that your oneness with infinite evil overcomes infinite evil. That's called narcissism at rock star level, the Mick Jagger of stupidity. That's the stupidity of oneness. Your little petty oneness doesn't decode totality from evil. You're just basically in denial of everyone else. Let everyone else fucking get raped and pillaged and commit genocide, but now I'm one with God and I've overcome my little predilection for evil. Welcome, motherfucker. That's called absolute, eternal denial. And the Buddha was decoded that according to these texts. Your need to belong to the cult of oneness does not decode suffering from totality. Sorry, dude. There's another way to do it. You got to decode your identity with oneness and then see what's there. Really? You're calling into question identity? That's right. And that to me is super rad, because all these systems try to evolve identity. But it's adaptation to, as you know, Krishnamurti said it, and Artie Lang, is no measure of success to be profoundly adapted to a sick society. Okay, welcome to psychedelic-assisted transformational therapy. I'm sick, you're sick, we've adapted to sickness, called modicum of health as long as you've got money. You can't integrate into a dysfunctional household. It's one of the greatest misnomers of the universe, that you can't adapt and integrate classical meditative wisdom in society unless it's done with money and privilege and generally a lot of denial. And you've got to tout your successes with the denial of you propagating the joy of my denial to others. But when that society collapses and all of a sudden you don't have access to your loot, my happiness is out the window, and my teacher training and my integration of my mindfulness for 3 years in Tibet, my 2 years in Thailand, and my year in the Peace Corps, or my 6 months in Burma no longer has any life. And I'm just back to ground zero. Well, guess what? There are those out there who are at ground zero who got that. And they're just ahead of their time. I know that. A lot of the people in my life know that they're ahead of their time, but they don't keep themselves shallow. They're stepping up. I had one person that came to my talk the other night, my show. She fucking quit her business coaching job that night and moving back to Australia. And she's taken up comedy. She's got a business manager, and she's already booked 3 shows. She's what's that?
You said she's taking up what now?
Comedy.
Oh, comedy.
On stage, yeah. She quit her business coaching job here in New Wood.
Oh, my son. You know, it's
Just quit your coaching job and be happy. Quit. And like, use your voice. The stages are free all over the world. They're waiting for you to book what you would do in a business coaching session, to just turn a little bit of what you do there onto a stage, 10 times the people, 5 times the income, and learn a little bit of the skill of comedy and satire. You'll have people laughing rather than basically, why aren't you giving me enough in my hour session with you? I don't see a return on my Facebook likes. I don't have enough followers on Instagram, motherfucker. I'm not paying you all this kind of money for you to just basically tell me this bullshit. Quit. There should be a massive exodus like Martin Luther King did and Gandhi said, stop work for the man. And that's one of the great secrets of India. Gandhi, you know Gandhi, of course, we all know Gandhi. And he confronted the apparatus of totalitarian white privilege. And he said, let's get them at their knees, man. Let's take their loot from them. Why are we going to be slaves for these motherfuckers? So he went village to village. He did one thing. Stop using your iPhone. Stop paying your bill. Civil disobedience by refusing to work, to pay privilege the right to oppress. Very skillful dude, right? And everyone's, oh, Mr. Gandhi, that's good for you. You only eat vegetarian food. You don't eat meat. We can't just give up killing our livestock to stop the British genocide. Help each other. Oh, never thought of that. Never thought of that. I'll help you, George. You can stop killing tonight. And I'll be happy to give you some of my money for my broccoli and my carrot. They stopped work. Went to the next village. The momentum of stop work caught on. Okay, the point being, British were pissed. The dude simply said, withdraw your collusion with the machinations and the mechanisms of capitalism, with patriarchy and colonialism. I think that's so rad. It's not anything innovative for me to say civil disobedience, but stop paying your money to kill people all over the world. But you got to do that, or they'll come after you. You got to self-censor on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. If they do, they're going to disclose your account, Mr. Clements. So he went to the ocean. What did he do? That famous thing, he held up that salt to the sun and said, it's ours. We stop the man. And guess what? The floor of denial dropped beneath the British. Next thing you know, India is a sovereign nation, right? Slowly but surely, after masses of killing and murder and desecration. But if they can do it in India, we can do it around the world, right? We are many, as Arundhati Roy said, they are few. Make ourselves a collective pain in the ass by using the power of the feminine. You know that as a woman. But that, to me, using your goddess-given voice on your broken, neurotic rad. Stop healing. You're not needing healing. You're not broken. You're not trauma. Yes, yes, yes. Mommy and daddy didn't fucking pick me up when I was 6, but I've got 66 years past that 6-year-old status in which I have had a lot of benefit. Go back to mommy and daddy and overcome what they didn't do, even though they're in their grave, by putting flowers on their grave and saying, thank you very much, mommy and daddy, for holding me. Mom, thank you for all that milk you gave me. Dad, thank you for all that tireless work that you did for me. Show some fucking gratitude and overcome your fear, your insecurity, your fucking narcissistic arrogance by worshiping the people you should worship.